My name is Thomas. I'm 43 years old, and I've spent most of my life being the kind of father who believes in discipline, hard work, and the importance of family values. I had always prided myself on being a good, strict father to Noah, my 16-year-old son. He was the apple of my eye, even if he was a little stubborn sometimes. I used to think that tough love was the best way to teach him the right lessons. That all changed one afternoon when my phone rang. I remember exactly where I was, standing in the garage, wiping my hands on a rag after fixing the old family car. I glanced at my phone, the caller ID flashing unknown. I didn't think much of it. Maybe a telemarketer, I thought, before answering. Hello, Mr. Turner? A voice said on the other end. It sounded official, serious. We need to inform you that your son, Noah Turner, has been arrested. I froze. My mind didn't process it at first. What do you mean arrested? My voice sounded alien to me, a mix of confusion and disbelief. He was caught in connection with a theft at the local electronics store. He's being held at the station. The words hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating me. My hands tightened around the phone, and my stomach sank into my chest. I was furious. I couldn't believe it. There was no way my son, my Noah, could have done something like that. I'll be there right away, I said, hanging up without another word. I remember the drive to the police station. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles turned white. I couldn't even focus on the road, my mind racing a mile a minute. I had raised Noah better than this. He knew better. How could he do this to me, to our family? When I arrived, I marched straight up to the desk officer. My heart was pounding in my ears as I demanded to see my son. They led me back to a small interrogation room where Noah sat, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him before. His shoulders slumped, his eyes barely meeting mine. What the hell were you thinking? I couldn't hold back the anger any longer. Stealing? This is not how we raised you. Noah didn't answer. He just sat there, staring at the table. His silence only fueled my rage. I felt betrayed. He knew how hard I worked to provide for this family, how much I sacrificed. And this was how he repaid me. I couldn't even look at him. I didn't want to listen to whatever excuse he had. I didn't care. I just wanted him to feel the weight of what he'd done. We left the station after a couple of hours. As soon as we got home, I started taking inventory of everything Noah held dear. His room was full of his things, action figures, books, comic books, his gaming console. It didn't matter that these things were a part of him, things he'd worked hard to collect over the years. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. He needed to learn a lesson, and I was going to make sure of it. I began listing everything for sale. I wasn't sure if I was doing it to punish him or if it was my way of dealing with the anger I felt. Either way, Noah didn't say a word. He didn't protest. He just stayed in his room, staring at the wall, as if he'd already given up. I sold everything. I didn't care if it was his favorite toy or his rarest comic book. Actions have consequences, I kept telling myself, and Noah would learn this the hard way. The house was silent that night. Normally, Noah would be on his gaming console, talking to his friends, laughing. Not anymore. He didn't even touch it. He didn't say anything at all. I could hear him in his room, just sitting there, isolated, not a word or a sound coming from him. It was like he was a different person. And in that silence, I began to question if I had done the right thing. But it didn't matter. The anger was still there, burning in my chest, justifying what I'd done. This was the first time I really felt like I didn't know my son anymore. And it felt like a betrayal. I wasn't just punishing him for stealing. I was punishing him because, deep down, I felt like he had betrayed me. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the thought. What kind of father had I become? It didn't matter now. He would learn his lesson. He'd regret this. He had to. But Noah? He didn't regret a thing. He didn't say anything. Not to me. Not to anyone. And in that silence, I realized something. This was just the beginning. In this scene, Thomas makes a rash decision, punishing his son Noah for an alleged theft without hearing his side. Consumed by anger, Thomas takes away Noah's most prized possessions, sending him into emotional isolation. While Thomas feels justified, Noah's silence speaks volumes about the damage caused. 2 weeks had passed since the night I stripped Noah of everything he held dear. The anger that had consumed me in the days following his arrest slowly turned into something darker, something that gnawed at the pit of my stomach, even as I justified my actions. Noah hadn't spoken much since that night, retreating further into silence. And I buried myself in work, telling myself that this was for his own good. He would come to appreciate the lesson, eventually. Then, that morning, a knock on the door changed everything. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was early, barely 8 a.m., but the sound was firm, insistent. I opened the door to find a police officer standing on the porch, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I felt my heart skip. My mind raced back to the arrest, to the fury that had clouded my judgment. I braced myself, thinking that maybe Noah had somehow gotten himself into more trouble. But what he said next made my blood run cold. "Mr. Turner?" he asked. "I'm Officer Hayes. I'm here to inform you that new evidence has come to light in the case of your son's arrest." I blinked, trying to process his words. The reality of what he was saying didn't sink in immediately. "A witness has come forward," the officer continued. "It wasn't your son who stole the items. It was another student. The real thief has been caught on security footage, and Noah was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. I felt a strange numbness wash over me as I took the news in. There was a moment of stunned silence between us. I felt the weight of what I had done, the irreversible decision to sell Noah's possessions, punish him without a second thought. The things I had taken from him, his rare comic books, his action figures, his books, were gone. And they weren't just things. They were memories, the small tokens of his life. A life I had destroyed in a fit of misplaced rage. "Thank you for letting me know," I said, trying to maintain composure, my voice steady even though the guilt was choking me. "I'll take care of it." I wasn't sure if I was thanking him for the information or thanking him for not saying anything more. The truth stung too much to confront fully. As the officer left, I felt like I was drowning in my own guilt, but I couldn't bring myself to truly face it. I had done this. I had ruined things. And now, it was too late to undo it. I went upstairs, numb, my feet dragging. When I reached Noah's door, I hesitated. I could hear him inside, and the silence was deafening. I knocked softly, but when there was no response, I pushed the door open. Noah was sitting in the corner of his room, his legs pulled up to his chest, eyes staring blankly at the floor. He didn't look up when I entered, didn't acknowledge my presence. His gaming console, his prized possession, lay untouched on the desk. It had been weeks since he'd even looked at it. I felt a pang of regret deep in my chest, but I couldn't voice it yet. I couldn't bring myself to say the words, "I'm sorry." The truth was, I wasn't ready to apologize, not fully. I had been right, hadn't I? He needed to learn that actions have consequences. I was the one who'd raised him to understand that. "Noah," I started, my voice quiet, tentative. I made a mistake. I should have." I couldn't finish the sentence. The weight of what I had done hung between us, unspoken. Noah remained silent, his face expressionless, his eyes never lifting from the floor. He refused to look at me. The damage was done. I tried again. "I should have listened to you. I should have heard your side. I was wrong." No response. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice barely a whisper now. I was angry. I was scared. "But you're not guilty, Noah." And I trailed off, unsure of how to continue. What more could I say? What could undo the hurt I'd caused? Still nothing. Just silence. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, waiting for something, anything, an acknowledgement, a glance, a word, but there was nothing. Finally, I gave up. I walked out of the room, my head swimming in guilt, my chest tight with regret. I hadn't even thought about what it would do to him, how the punishment would affect him emotionally, how it would affect our relationship. As I closed his door behind me, I realized something. I hadn't just hurt him by selling his things. I had shattered the trust between us, and no apology, no matter how sincere, could fix that. The damage was done. It had been several weeks since I had received the news about Noah's wrongful arrest, and the weight of what I had done was starting to settle on me like a heavy, suffocating cloud. The guilt was unbearable, but I wasn't ready to confront it fully. I told myself that I was giving Noah space, letting him come around on his own. But in truth, I was just too scared to face him. I'd already done enough damage. Noah, however, wasn't moving forward. He hadn't been the same since that day. I kept hoping he would bounce back, but he didn't. His grades started to slip. What had once been a bright, ambitious kid, eager to tackle anything that came his way, now seemed like a shell of himself. The report cards came in, and I saw the D's and C's staring back at me, each one like a knife twisting in my gut. When I picked up the phone to call the school, I tried to remain composed. I told myself I had to fix this, that I could help him get back on track. But the more I talked to his teachers, the more I realized the full extent of the damage I had caused. "Noah's been withdrawn," his history teacher said gently. "He's not engaging in class, doesn't turn in assignments anymore. And it's not just the schoolwork, it's his behavior, too. He's not the kid he used to be." My heart dropped. But the worst part was hearing the concern in their voices. They weren't just worried about his grades. They were worried about him, the person he was becoming. They didn't say it, but I could hear it in their words. This was my fault. At home, Noah's behavior had become even more alarming. He wasn't eating much anymore. I'd catch him picking at his food, but he never finished a meal. He spent his days locked away in his room, barely speaking. I tried to intervene once or twice, but each time, it was like talking to a wall. "Hey, Noah," I said one night, standing at his door. "How about we do something tomorrow? Go to that new pizza place you've been wanting to try?" Nothing. I cracked the door open slightly, peeking inside. "Noah," I asked, my voice softer now. He was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, staring out the window, as if he couldn't even hear me. I wanted to reach out, but I didn't know how. I couldn't fix this with a few words. I destroyed his trust, his love for me, and the worst part was I didn't know if I could ever get it back. A few nights later, after dinner, I sat down with Mary in the living room. Her eyes were red, tired. She hadn't been sleeping much, and I could see the toll it was taking on her, too. We hadn't talked much about Noah's situation, not directly, but it was clear from the way she kept glancing toward his room that she was just as worried as I was. "He's not the same, Thomas," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "Something's happening to him. You're hurting him, and I don't know what to do anymore." Her words hit me like a punch in the gut, and I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but I knew she was right. I could feel it in my bones. the truth that I had been avoiding. Mary, I started, but I didn't have the words. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what to do. She looked at me, her eyes filled with sadness. How could you do that to him, Thomas? How could you sell his things, his comics, his books, the gift from his grandfather? The mention of the gift hit me hard. Noah's grandfather had passed away a few years ago, and I had given him that watch. It wasn't just a gift, it was a family heirloom, something meaningful, but I had sold it too. When I'd seen how crushed Noah was, I had told myself it was just stuff, things he could replace. But I was wrong. I didn't even think about what it would do to him, how those items weren't just objects. They were a part of him. And now, I had destroyed them. I'm trying to buy it back, I said quickly, my voice growing frantic. I'm working on it. I'm paying more than it's worth, just to get it back. But Mary wasn't convinced. She shook her head slowly, her face a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak. You think that's going to fix it? You can't just buy your way out of this, Thomas. You can't just buy his trust back. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to steady my breathing. I don't know what else to do, Mary. I was angry. I thought I was teaching him a lesson. I was trying to show him there are consequences for his actions. No, she whispered. You were trying to control him. You've been doing it for years. And now look at him. She paused, her voice quivering. He's broken, Thomas. You've broken him. I couldn't argue with that. The truth was there, staring me in the face. I had hurt him. I had caused him to retreat into a shell of himself. And now, all I could do was try to make amends. A week later, I finally retrieved the watch from the buyer, paying far more than I should have for something that was never truly mine to sell. I brought it back, hoping that somehow, this would make it right. Noah was sitting in his room again, as he always was. I knocked lightly before entering. He didn't look up from his desk as I placed the watch on his bed. I got it back for you, I said, my voice tight. I know it's not the same, but I want you to have it. He didn't say a word, didn't even acknowledge it. He just sat there, looking at the watch, then back at the wall, his expression blank. I waited, hoping for some kind of response, anything, but there was nothing. Noah picked up the watch, turned it over in his hands once, then set it down on the shelf next to his desk. No thanks, no acknowledgement, just silence. It hit me then, the true weight of what I had done. The watch was back, yes, but it didn't change the fact that I had lost my son. And no amount of money, no matter how much I spent, could ever undo that. In this scene, the damage caused by Thomas's decision begins to take a toll not just on Noah's emotional health, but on the family dynamic as a whole. Thomas's attempts to buy back what he had sold fail to repair the emotional rift he's caused, leaving him with the realization that his actions have pushed Noah further away. It was late one night when the storm finally hit. Mary and I hadn't really talked much since the day I tried to buy back Noah's watch. There were no big confrontations, no yelling, just quiet. The silence had become deafening between us, and we both knew it. I knew it anyway, but I couldn't bring myself to say the things I should have. Couldn't bring myself to admit how badly I had screwed up. Noah had been distant, more distant than ever before, and every time I tried to reach out, it felt like he was retreating further. He didn't speak to me, didn't make eye contact, and his health? His body had started to show the signs of all that emotional pain. He wasn't eating much. He'd lost weight. And his grades? Forget about it. He'd stopped trying, stopped caring, just like he'd stopped caring about me. Then one night, Mary and I were sitting in the living room, the TV flickering quietly in the background. She'd been looking at me for a while now, her eyes full of concern, but I hadn't been able to bring myself to look back. I could feel it. Something was coming, and I wasn't ready. Thomas, she said, her voice quiet, but firm. We need to talk. I glanced at her, my heart racing. The last time we had this kind of talk, she wasn't happy with me. Not that she ever was these days. What is it? She took a breath, and I could tell she was trying to gather her thoughts. It wasn't easy for her, either. But when she spoke, her words hit me like a punch. You've been too harsh on Noah. Too unforgiving, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I've watched you tear him down over the years, and now look at him. He's not just angry at you, he's afraid of you. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was teaching him, I said defensively. Discipline, responsibility, how to be a man. Mary shook her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. No, Thomas, you were controlling him, breaking him down. He didn't need discipline like that. He needed love, support, compassion. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She wasn't finished. Do you know how much you've hurt him? She asked. You know what this feels like, don't you? The way you act toward him, the way you've always acted. You learned it from your father. I flinched at her words. My father. That man had been harsh with me, too. He'd been strict, unyielding, and I had spent my whole life trying to prove I wasn't like him. But here I was, doing exactly what he had done to me, exactly what I had sworn I would never do to my son. Mary's words sank in. You're repeating the cycle, Thomas, she said softly, her eyes filled with pain. You're doing to Noah exactly what our father did to us. And look at him now. He's so broken, Thomas. You've pushed him so far away that he doesn't even know how to come back. Her words were like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest, and I couldn't breathe. I had spent so many years believing that my strictness, my control, was what Noah needed, that it was for his own good. But now I was starting to see the truth I had ignored, the truth I hadn't wanted to face. I tried to hold it together, to keep the walls I'd built up intact. I didn't mean to hurt him, Mary. I just wanted him to learn. But at what cost, Thomas? She whispered. At what cost? She was right. I had been so focused on controlling him, on teaching him lessons, that I had lost sight of the most important thing, the relationship between father and son. I had become obsessed with shaping him, molding him into something I wanted him to be. But I had never stopped to think about what Noah needed, about who he was. I had never stopped to listen to him. Mary was right about one thing. I had become my father, and I hated that. I hated it because I never wanted to be that man, but I had turned into him. My obsession with control and discipline had torn apart the very thing I had wanted to protect, my family, my son. A cold wave of realization washed over me, and I felt the weight of my mistakes crashing down. I had hurt my son in ways I couldn't even begin to undo. And what terrified me the most was that I didn't know if Noah would ever forgive me, if I could ever forgive myself. I've been so wrong, I muttered, my voice barely a whisper. I've hurt him so much. And now I don't know how to fix it. Mary's face softened. It's not too late, Thomas. You have to change. But you have to admit the damage you've done first. You can't fix this by just buying back his things or saying sorry. You need to show him you're really sorry, that you'll change, for good. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Do you think he'll ever forgive me? She looked at me, her eyes filled with both sorrow and hope. I don't know, but if you keep doing what you've been doing, if you keep pushing him away, he won't, and you'll lose him, for good. Her words hit me like a slap. I had already lost him in many ways, hadn't I? And all the money in the world, all the apologies, couldn't fix the trust one had shattered. I don't know where to start, I admitted, my voice breaking. Mary reached out, her hand resting on mine. Start with him. Start by really listening. Show him you care, not just with words, but with your actions. Show him you're there for him, no matter what. I nodded, though I had no idea how I was going to do it. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep going down the same path. I couldn't keep hurting him and pretending it was for his own good. I had to change, for Noah, and for myself. As I left the living room and walked toward Noah's door, I felt a deep, overwhelming sense of guilt. But I also felt something else, something I hadn't felt in a long time, the faintest glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could begin to undo the damage I had caused. But it wouldn't be easy, and I wasn't sure if Noah would even let me try. Noah's pain had been building up for weeks now. I could see it in his eyes every time I tried to talk to him. Every time I entered his room and found him sitting there, curled in on himself, barely breathing. I could feel the heavy weight of his silence pressing down on me. I didn't know how to fix things, how to reach him. And the worst part? I still didn't fully understand just how broken he was, how much of the damage was caused by my own hand. Then, it happened at school. I had always known that Noah was a quiet kid, not a fighter, not someone who looked for trouble. But when I got the call from the school, I could feel the tension in the air before they even spoke. Mr. Turner, we need you to come down here immediately, the principal said, her voice tense. There's been an incident involving your son. I rushed to the school, my heart pounding in my chest. When I arrived, the principal and a couple of teachers were waiting for me, looking grim. They led me to the principal's office, where I found Noah sitting by himself, his hands folded in his lap. His face was pale, his lips pressed tight. What happened? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though I was already bracing myself for something bad. The principal cleared her throat. Noah was involved in a violent altercation with another student, one of the boys who'd been making fun of him, accusing him of stealing the very thing he was arrested for. Noah snapped. I looked at Noah, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. His expression was empty, like he'd given up trying to hold it together. Tell me what happened, I said, more gently this time, trying to reach him. I was desperate to understand, desperate for him to say something, anything. Noah finally spoke, his voice low. He wouldn't stop. He kept calling me a thief, kept telling me I was guilty, that I deserved everything I got. The words hit me like a slap. I knew who he was talking about, the same kid who had taunted him at school after the incident, the one who'd made it his mission to make Noah's life a living hell since the arrest. Noah, you know violence isn't the answer, I said, my tone softening. But deep down I understood. The pressure of everything had built up inside him like a ticking time bomb. It wasn't the first time he'd been pushed too far. I didn't mean to. It just happened, Noah whispered, his hands shaking. The principal sighed. The other student is fine. But Noah, we're concerned. This is his third incident this month, and the other kids are beginning to isolate him. There's bullying, and it's affecting his mental and emotional well-being. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I did this, I thought. I had pushed him to the edge, and now he was breaking in front of me. A couple of days later, I was sitting at the kitchen table, my head in my hands, when the phone rang again. It was Officer Carter, the same officer who had initially handled Noah's case. He was calling to let me know that Noah's emotional turmoil was beginning to have a ripple effect and that he needed help. You've got to get Noah into therapy, Thomas, Officer Carter said, his voice grim. This is beyond just school bullying. It's deeper than that. He's holding on to something, and it's eating him alive. I let his words sink in, the weight of them hitting me hard. I had assumed the worst, assumed Noah was just being rebellious, just being difficult. But the reality was much darker. My son was drowning, and I hadn't even thrown him a lifeline. When I got home later that night, I found Noah in the living room, sitting silently on the couch, staring at the TV without actually watching it. I sat next to him, my chest tight with guilt. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm, but my voice cracked slightly. "We need to talk." Noah didn't respond, not even a glance. "Look, I know things have been hard for you," I continued, my voice softer now. "I can't undo what I've done, but I want to make it right. I'm sorry, Noah. I've messed up. I've hurt you, and I see that now." He didn't look at me. His eyes were fixed on the screen, distant. "You don't have to forgive me," I added, the words almost too hard to say. "But I want to try and fix this. I'll do whatever it takes." Still nothing. But then, unexpectedly, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to be here anymore, Dad. I don't want to be anywhere. I just want to disappear." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't know how to respond. I just sat there, dumbstruck, as the silence grew between us. Noah didn't look angry, didn't look sad. He just looked empty, like he had no fight left in him. His words had sliced through me, but it was the way he said them, so quietly, so resigned, that made my stomach drop. "I don't know what to do," I whispered, the weight of my own failure crushing me. "I'm so sorry, Noah." But Noah didn't respond. He didn't say anything else. He just sat there, his expression unreadable. And I knew, deep down, that whatever apology I offered, whatever effort I made, wouldn't bring back the trust one had shattered. Later that night, I found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at the empty sink, unable to wash away the guilt that was suffocating me. I had been a terrible father, and Noah had paid the price. As I walked back to my room, I heard the faint sound of Noah's door creaking open and then closing again. I didn't know if he was going to bed or if he was just retreating further into himself, but I knew one thing. I had broken him, and there was no easy fix. The weeks dragged on, each day more suffocating than the last. I thought I was making progress, trying to do the right thing, but with every step I took, it felt like Noah was slipping further away from me. The therapy sessions we started him on didn't seem to help. No matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, Noah remained distant, unreachable. His silence was becoming unbearable, and I didn't know how to break through. Mary and I had tried everything. We gave him space. We tried to encourage him, but the cracks in our family were widening. Noah's health was deteriorating. He was barely eating, and every time I walked past his room, he looked smaller. His shoulders slumped, his face pale. I didn't know what to do, but I kept telling myself he would snap out of it, that he was just going through a phase. But the phone call came that I was dreading, the call I had feared would come one day, but had tried not to think about. It was early in the morning, and the house was still quiet. Mary was in the kitchen, and Noah had barely left his room for the past few days. I had just finished breakfast when the phone rang. I recognized the school's number immediately and felt my stomach drop. "Mr. Turner?" The voice on the other end said. "This is Principal Parker. I need you to come down here as soon as possible. It's about Noah." My heart raced. "What happened?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's urgent. Please, just come down," she replied, the urgency in her tone making my blood run cold. I told Mary that I was leaving and rushed out the door. The drive to the school felt like it took forever. My mind raced through 1,000 scenarios. Had something happened at school? Had Noah been hurt? My chest tightened with each passing minute. When I arrived, the principal was waiting for me at the door, and she led me to her office. My eyes immediately found Noah, sitting in one of the chairs, looking like he had been through a storm. His eyes were red, his face pale, but there was something else there too, something I couldn't quite place. I knelt in front of him, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Tell me what happened," I said gently, my voice shaky. I needed to understand, needed to make sense of what was going on. Noah finally spoke, his voice barely audible. I did something stupid." The principal interjected. Noah was involved in a physical altercation with another student. It was one of the boys who's been bullying him for weeks. After the theft incident, this student made it his mission to torment Noah. I stared at Noah. I knew about the bullying. He had mentioned it before, but I hadn't realized just how badly it had affected him. He was usually quiet, but this was different. I could see it in his eyes now. The emotional weight had crushed him, and it had finally boiled over into something worse. The other student had pushed him too far. Noah had snapped. "They were making fun of me," Noah said, his voice shaking now, "calling me a thief. And I just lost it." I felt a pang in my chest, guilt flooding through me. This kid, this bully, had pushed my son to the edge, and I was part of it. I had driven him into isolation, made him feel worthless. "What happened?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "I punched him," Noah mumbled, his face reddening. "I didn't mean to, but I don't know." It was like everything just came out. The principal sighed. "Noah didn't hurt the other boy severely, but it was bad enough that we had to get security involved. He's been suspended for a few days while we investigate, but we're also going to offer him counseling." I nodded, my head spinning. The guilt was suffocating. The weight of it pressed down on me, and I couldn't breathe. The days that followed were even more strained. Noah didn't talk to me. He barely looked at me. Even when I tried to reach out, to offer comfort or an apology, he wouldn't budge. It felt like I was hitting a wall every time I tried. He had closed himself off completely. Then one night, after I got home from work, I found him in the living room, sitting on the couch. His head was down, his arms crossed, and there was a blanket wrapped tightly around him, but it looked like it was more for comfort than warmth. "Noah," I said softly, sitting beside him. "How are you?" His response was a quiet shake of his head, but he didn't look at me. "You've been through so much," I said, my voice breaking. "And I've made it worse. I was wrong, son. I was angry, and I punished you without even listening. I'm sorry. I need you to understand that." Still nothing. The silence between us was deafening. "I'm trying to fix it," I continued, my voice barely a whisper. "But I know that it's going to take time. I just want you to know that I'm here. I'll always be here for you." But Noah didn't respond. He didn't even acknowledge me. His silence was louder than any words. Later that night, when I checked in on him before going to bed, I saw something that broke me. Noah was sitting on the edge of his bed, his wrists hidden under the sleeves of his hoodie. I noticed the faint marks there, something I had never seen before. He'd done this to himself. I froze. I couldn't breathe. The sight of those scars, the ones he'd left on his own skin, sucked the air from the room. I had pushed him so far, made him feel so worthless, that he had resorted to this. The tears came then, unbidden and uncontrollable. I realized just how far I had gone, how much damage I had caused. I had let my anger, my need for control, tear my family apart. And in the process, I had almost lost my son completely. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to help him anymore. But I couldn't give up. Not now. I rushed to Mary, my voice frantic, telling her what I had seen. And together, we tried to figure out what came next, knowing that our son needed help in ways we had never anticipated. Noah was in pain, and I had driven him to the edge. I could see that now, but would he ever let me help him? Or had I pushed him so far away that the damage was beyond repair? In this scene, Noah's emotional pain reaches a boiling point, leading to a violent outburst at school. His actions serve as a wake-up call for Thomas, as he begins to understand the depth of Noah's despair and the damage caused by his harsh behavior. The discovery of Noah's self-harm marks a turning point for Thomas, forcing him to confront the gravity of his failure as a father. Months had passed since Noah's suicide attempt. It felt like a lifetime. The weight of that day, of seeing him lying unconscious in the hospital, surrounded by tubes and wires, his fragile body barely clinging to life, had carved itself into my soul, a permanent scar I couldn't escape. It haunted me in every waking moment and filled my dreams with dread. But Noah was alive. That was the only thing that mattered. He was breathing, fighting, and he had been given another chance. A chance I hadn't even realized he needed. And now, I was determined to do everything I could to help him heal. Therapy became part of our routine. It wasn't just Noah who needed it, though. Mary and I both saw therapists. She was shattered by everything that had happened, and I was consumed by guilt. Our marriage had become a quiet war, a tension hanging over every conversation. But the worst part was knowing that I had caused so much damage to my son. No amount of therapy could make up for that. Noah's emotional recovery was slow. He still didn't speak much. He had started attending school again, but even in the classroom, he seemed detached, as if he were a ghost, moving through life, but never fully participating. His eyes were hollow, his smile absent. The spark that had once been there was dimmed, and nothing I did seemed to bring it back. I tried to help him in every way I could think of, bringing home his favorite foods, offering to take him to movies, buying back some of the things I had sold. But with every attempt, it felt like I was pushing him further away. I was desperate, but nothing seemed to get through. It was during one of our rare moments of family time that the full weight of my failure as a father hit me. We were at a family gathering, a simple barbecue at Mary's sister's house. Noah had come, though he barely interacted with anyone. He sat quietly in the corner, watching the others, never laughing, never engaging. I tried to get him to join us at the table, to talk to his cousins, but he barely glanced up. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I couldn't fix this. Not with all the money I had thrown at him, not with all the gifts, not with all the apologies. At the end of the night, I found myself standing off to the side, watching Noah as he stood by the fence, his back turned to everyone. He wasn't even looking at anything in particular. His arms were crossed, and his head was tilted down, his face unreadable. It was like he wasn't even there. He was a stranger to me. "Are you okay?" Mary's voice broke through my thoughts. I hadn't even noticed her approach. I shook my head. "I don't know how to fix this, Mary. I don't know if I can. I've tried everything." She stood silently for a moment, and I could see the sadness in her eyes. "Thomas, I don't know if you can fix it either, but I do know one thing. This is his healing process, not yours. You've tried everything you can, but the rest of it, it's on him. You have to let him heal at his own pace." Her words struck me. It was like she had pulled me out of a fog. I realized then that I had been so focused on rushing back into Noah's life, so desperate to make things right, that I had been forcing him to heal on my terms, not his. I hadn't been giving him the space he needed. I had been too focused on myself, on my guilt, to see what he really needed. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "I've been trying to fix everything, but I haven't been listening. I haven't been letting him breathe." Mary placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch comforting. "You can't fix everything, Thomas. All you can do is show him that you're here, that you're not going anywhere. But it's up to him when he's ready to reach out, not you." I nodded, the reality sinking in. The path to redemption wasn't about rushing in, about forcing my way back into his life. It was about giving him the time and space he needed, allowing him to heal in his own way, at his own pace. It was hard, harder than anything I had ever done. But in that moment, I knew that this was what I needed to do. I had to step back. Months passed. Slowly, Noah began to show signs of life again. He didn't speak much, but there were moments, small moments. He would look up from his homework and catch my eye, a brief flicker of recognition. One night, he even picked up his gaming console again. It wasn't much, but it was a sign. And then, one day, he told me he wanted to go to a school event, a concert of all things. I hadn't seen him so animated in months. He actually wanted to do something with his life, with the world around him. It was a small victory, but it felt like everything. I watched him from the back of the auditorium that evening, surrounded by his friends, a real smile on his face. He didn't need me to hold his hand anymore. He didn't need me to fix him. He was finding his way back on his own. I sat there, quietly proud, and yet filled with an aching sorrow. I knew that this wasn't the end of his journey, not by a long shot, but it was a start. And that, at least, was something. Several months later, I found myself sitting in my car outside the school. Noah had invited me to a parent-teacher conference. It was his idea, not mine. A sign of progress, I suppose. He had been talking to me more, little by little, and while things were far from perfect, they were better. As I waited for him to arrive, I thought about everything that had happened. The mistakes, the pain, the silence, the guilt, but also the growth, the slow, painful, gradual recovery that was taking place. Noah wasn't the same boy who had been broken by my actions, and I wasn't the same father who had torn him apart. We were both learning, slowly, together. I didn't expect Noah to forgive me overnight. I didn't expect him to forget what I had done. But I realized, as I sat there, that redemption wasn't about rushing back into his life. It was about accepting the truth, the mistakes I had made, and giving him the space to heal in his own time. As Noah finally walked into the school building, I caught his eye. This time he smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. In this final scene, Thomas reflects on his journey toward redemption. He realizes that healing is a long, difficult road, and that his son's recovery is not something he can force. Through patience and understanding, he begins to accept that redemption isn't a quick fix. It's about giving Noah the space to heal and allowing himself to grow in the process.